If you were here last week for the myth of balance, today is part 2. So stay tuned, lock in, get your journal, your pen, whatever it is, sis, because here we go. Is this thing on? Welcome to Come Sis With Me, the podcast, real talk, biblical wisdom, and practical tools. I'm your host, Mia Randall, your wellness architect. Each episode is designed to help you align, release, and create a life you actually want to live. Honestly, it's more like my personal journal that I read aloud to my sisters in the world every week. But hey, come for the stories and strategies, stay for the sisterhood. Let's get into it. Yeah, we can get sucked into that superwoman complex quite easily. And one of the things that I think gets us stuck there is guilt, like shame and guilt. Definitely looking at other people, comparing, but like that guilt. How have you had to deal with it? And if you have, mom guilt, wife guilt, employee guilt, leader guilt, like, is that a thing for Chante, or is that just the rest of us in the world?
No, it's been, I had to get free from false responsibility, like big time, of just taking on the weight of the world on my shoulders. And if I couldn't solve somebody's problems or be whatever, then it was like, so then so hustle culture is not just about like working to make money. It's really trying to be God. Ultimately, it's really trying to meet needs that you were not created to meet, and only the Lord was.
Wow.
So this is not me, like, if you see somebody hungry on the street and you be like, I'm gonna pray for you, even though you could just give them some food. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that you really are owning things that do not belong to you. So then that's where the guilt comes in. For example, like you mentioned mom guilt, right? So if I can't go be at all these things for now forget I done already done all this other stuff for this child. But if I can't do this one thing, it's the end of the world and I have ruined her and she's going to hate me when she grows up. And this is the worst thing in the world. That one, that
worst
one time.
Childhood ever.
Yeah, worst childhood ever, worst mother, all these things. And it was like, why do you think that you were created to meet every single need that she has? Well, that's never been God's design. Or the same thing for my husband. I was not meant to meet every single need that he has. So what about my thinking and my beliefs about God puts me in that position to be like, oh my God, I feel guilty for not being their God? Because really that's what we're saying, right? By not being able to do whatever this thing is, we're saying, I'm not their God and I feel bad about that. And I don't want to be like, I'm telling you, I had to get delivered from this. And this is something that I consistently have to confess about the Lord, is that these people are his children first. And there is absolutely no way that he would expect me and my crazy self to meet every single need they have. That would be unfair to them as his children. If everything that they needed was riding on me, another flawed, broken person who needs to rely on the Lord to have all my needs met. So it really is like checking our ungodly beliefs. Like, what do I really believe about myself, about God, and about other people? If every time I can't do what I think they need me to do, guilt sets in. Like, we know, like, there's no condemnation for those. It's like we confess that all the time. But the reality is, like, am I living that though? Am I living that there's no condemnation?
Right.
And even if I do disappoint them, because I'm going to disappoint them, what do I think is my responsibility in that? And what is God's responsibility and what's their responsibility? So I'm not going to pretend that it's easy, but it's reminding ourselves about the truth about God. Like, we are not God. We're not even close. Not even close.
Yeah. You talked about deliverance and like getting delivered from that, and consistently, like constant, this is a new month. All right. False responsibility, gotta go, right? But and that's a practical, just in case like listeners don't know, that is a practical like tangible item that you can walk yourself through it through ministry, right? I'm a inner healing and deliverance ministry, so is Chante, our minister, so is Chante, and so we actively walk people through that process of being delivered or free, getting free from those things that will try to taunt or taint your life, right? Day to day. But more specifically for you, I know you shared with me personally, and I just know from knowing you, there are things that we share. One being the journey of infertility, but also just your life last year, overall, just the things that you dealt with. What are some things that you put in place that helped you navigate those complexities of life and maintain balance? Like, I drink more water, I don't, what are those things that you added to the equation beyond, deliverance and getting free and going through some inner healing sessions that helped you in this area?
Yeah, so a few things. So one, really taking my physical health seriously. Because while I was navigating a lot of those tough things, so the year before I had lost 15 pounds and didn't even realize it in 2022. I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Now it could have been, I still don't know like how that happened at all, nor did I even notice it until I went to the doctor. But last year
The Lord.
I gained all that weight back and then some. And I'm like, I felt like I was gaining the weight back. And I'm like, you know what? I need something that is a stress reliever and something to really help me like jumpstart my day. Because my daughter started kindergarten last year and we were getting up earlier and I was like, oh Jesus, this is rough. Waking up early. And so then I would lay back down when she would go to school. And so then my day would just be like, so then I'm jumping up to start work and
the worst.
My day is dragging me through basically.
Yeah,
I was
the
not
worst.
in command of my day in any way, shape, or form. So I'm like squeezing in time with God and behind and just I don't function well in that. Some people can like quickly pivot. Not me. I need a system, and then if I need to change the system, I can go with that. But I didn't have. I was struggling. I was struggling bad, and so what I decided is that okay, after she goes to school, it's still before my workday starts, so I can get a workout in, a 30-minute workout. Sometimes I can add on 10 more minutes if I need to, and then I can spend time with the Lord, and then I can start my workday. And that was a game changer for me. I really was able to like kind of settle my thoughts in the mornings because she's out the door and on with her day and really like think about, okay, how do I need to approach my day today from a mental standpoint and a spiritual standpoint? And the other thing is that because we've moved a lot, I haven't consistently had a therapist. It's been because we moved all the time. And so also making the decision to return back to regular therapy has been like exponentially, I feel like has accelerated my ability to balance and build synergy in my life because now it's like this is a regular part of my life. I'm getting these tools on a regular basis for things that are happening. And some of what Mia is referring to, like my dad is going through a really hard time in his health and is deteriorating right now. And as a daughter, right, that's difficult to navigate and watch. And he lives next door to me. So that plus some other family health things going on and just life in general, right? Like life can be really, really tough. And I realized like I needed to build my toolbox of my holistic health, right? Like my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health, because a lack in those areas really creates lack in other areas for me in particular. Because when I start feeling bad from a physical standpoint, then it's hard for me to get out of the bed. So then I'm not showing up my best at work, which means I'm probably getting behind, which means I need to work longer hours, which means it's encroaching on my time that I'm supposed to have in the evenings. And then if I'm doing that, then I am off on Sunday. So I'm just all messed up and I travel for work as well. So it's a domino effect for me. So then my umbrella starts getting some holes in it. So I think those are the practical things for me, like really taking care of my physical health. And it's a sacrifice of sleep because Lord knows I would love to be asleep at 6 a.m, but the risk, the return on that investment is so much greater for me. And now like I'm waking up on my own before my alarm. And it's either do it in the morning when it's here, when I'm here by myself, or do it in the evening when that's supposed to be my time with my husband. So I make the sacrifice to do it in the morning, and I sacrifice my sleep, but it's worth it.
Yeah. I actually don't like that I wake up before the alarm now. It actually irritates me. I'm like, God, darn it. Just 10 more minutes. But my body literally says, no, get up, girl. We got things to do.
Yes. Yes.
It is time to go. So therapy, we talked about deliverance ministry, definitely prioritizing yourself with workouts and health, because maybe that's not everybody's focus, but this is something that's important. How will you actually mom and wife to the level that you want to, even work? I mean,
Yeah.
even in the workplace, if your body is literally failing,
Yep.
right? Like, I just can't do these things. And this was you wrote me after I sent randomly, I sent Chante my thoughts. And then she has to decipher them and send me back a message. I'm like, what do you think about this? And one of the things you said to me in a text message was, after I told you about the diagnosis, you're like, you know what's odd to me is that people will not normalize counseling or going to therapy or getting a diagnosis and then getting the help that they need for the diagnosis the same way as if your arm was broken or something hurt and you go to the doctor and you go to get healed or whole in that way. And it's so baffling that we don't put those in the same perspective. Like, even with our culture itself, I would say in the Black and brown culture, it hasn't been notorious that counseling is like a first step. Hey, let's go to therapy and actually work on the things that are hurting and making us depressed and sad, right? Instead, we'll just ignore it and pretend like it doesn't exist. But there are some things that really happen. Like, and I talked about the journey of infertility. If you are comfortable with sharing, how that even has helped you move into a place of realizing I can't live this life without a level of balance.
Yeah, so I'm a 42-year-old mom of a 5-year-old, and I tell people that was not by choice. We weren't like, oh, let's wait till we get a little bit older and have a geriatric pregnancy on purpose. No. So I think,
oh, I hate that word.
I know, but it's cool because it's like the geriatric mamas are killing it. Okay, like okay. Anyway,
right, and we looking good. Like,
yes, yes. So I would say our journey to fertility. So our oldest daughter is not my birth daughter, but she's my baby. And then we weren't actively trying to get pregnant initially in our marriage. We kind of were like, oh, let's just enjoy being married. And like so my husband was playing overseas and our oldest daughter was in the States. And so we weren't thinking about it because when we got married, I was 25 and he was 28. So we weren't necessarily like thinking about it. We weren't preventing it, but we weren't trying to either. So it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
right.
And then I was getting pregnant. I got pregnant about a year after we got married, and then had an ectopic pregnancy, which is a horrible experience, and wasn't ever really like taught about what was going to happen next when you have an ectopic pregnancy once and puts you at a greater risk to have another one, which is exactly what happened several years later. And so after the second ectopic pregnancy, it really made it impossible to get pregnant naturally because they had to like disconnect my fallopian tubes from my uterus. And that's how babies travel right into your uterus, is through your fallopian tubes. So at that point, it was like, okay, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of
Yeah.
time like grieving, but also at some point the Lord was like, you guys need to enjoy each other because it won't always be this way.
Yeah.
And we did that, right? We traveled, he continued to play overseas, and we like were living our best lives. Always feeling though like a something was missing, like that ache of wanting a child was always missing. But we really tried to think about like, do we have capacity in our lives for a child? Because I had never had a newborn before. And so we didn't know what that looked like. And so he was still playing for a while. And then eventually he retired. And I would say by the time he retired, it was pretty pressing on our minds of like we really wanted to add to our family. But really seeking the Lord of what does that actually look like for us? Because we're back in the States full time, but coaching doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be living in the same place either. And I had a strong desire for our child to have stability in like going to school, because we moved quite a bit when I was younger and I didn't really like what that felt like. But it was still like, are our lives set up in a way that we have space for a little person? And maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but we started taking action to find out like how could we add to our family. And lots of things came up, right? And I hadn't really started, I was in my career, but it wasn't like accelerated. I was in leadership, but it was like a different level of leadership than I am now. And then I started working for myself, because I'm like, we're moving all over the place and those systems and balancing that. And I was traveling a lot more. I was traveling every single week. And we decided to pursue in vitro. And I was still ripping and running up and down the road, having to give myself injections and all kinds of things. But we had a system for ourselves because this was something that we really wanted in our lives and really felt released to do it by the Lord. And then when I did get pregnant, we kind of shut things down for a little while, right? Like I stopped traveling as much and just really trying to create that balance and what our lives would look like with a newborn. And then we had our daughter in 2018, and none of the things that we put in place made a difference. Because it was like, I thought in my mind, right? Because I'm a systems thinker. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set these systems up and just plug this little child in as if you can control them. And then that's not what happened at all. And I was like, oh, so I'm going to go back to work when she's 3 months. Literally the day I went back to work, she decided to stop taking naps. So it was like, okay, girl, no, you're not. I took a break from ministry for almost a year. And so we were just, putting things in place to balance our lives as a family of four. And that took longer than I thought, but it was okay. And I think that really helped us do what we needed to do in that season for our family. And now I think back to like how faithful God is to his timing, because I think about like, what if we didn't do that until now? I probably would have had to say no to a promotion. We wouldn't be leading in church because we would have had a newborn, or if it would have happened, before and we had to move, which is, so I think you can plan and prepare and put systems in place, but just be ready for life to do something different. And I think that's what the journey to motherhood really taught me in general, because I used to be like, oh, if you want to get pregnant, you can just get pregnant, right? And that's not actually how it works at all. So it just really taught us to enjoy the seasons that we're in. It taught us that leaning in, even though I didn't realize that's what it was teaching us, that we have to do now to try to balance our lives.
Wow. I love that. I love how I literally heard like the equilibrium in your story. How yes, it's important to have systems, but overall, keeping that perspective or the ability to shift your perspective at any given moment is important too. So that, that skiing example plays a part. We could literally end it here, but I have some other questions, so that's not gonna. but that's what you're exempling, and even through the immense journey, like by no means, and anyone who is dealing with infertility or on their own journey right now will understand what I'm saying is by no means is it an easy journey, right? Like it is filled with ups and downs, and is literally a walk through how good are you going to be about shifting your perspective in any given moment, right? which is a great segue for me, because I want us to talk about, before we get too far away from it, because I wanted to bring it back earlier, but sorry, we had too many things that I wanted you to expand on. But you talked about making and keeping good friends. Well, you didn't talk about making them, but that you have good friends that kind of helped you in this process. And I really wanted to know, where is the place for sisterhood? Because specifically for me and infertility, in talking about like the balancing act of my life, sisterhood was imperative. If I did not have sisters to celebrate in their births, I would not know the joy that I needed in some situations. I definitely am getting emotional. That I needed to have in some areas where all I wanted to do was cry and sit in a corner. Like I needed that. I needed to learn how to balance the joy with the pain. So for you, where does sisterhood play a role in this balancing act?
Oh man, okay. I don't have any tissue nearby, so it is what it is if it comes down. I would have not survived last year without my friends. Like last year would have definitely like taken me
Mm,
out without them. Like helping to give me that perspective. And even like I love my husband to death and he's amazing. My relationship with the Lord is amazing. But without people to really help like remind me that just keep your head above water, not like these unrealistic things to be doing or
wow.
saying, but just like just wake up in the morning, right? Like just how they can help support, or it's I know that you are probably near drowning at this point, but I'm going to send this to you to encourage you
Mm-hmm.
or give you grace in this area to cover you, because although I wear all these hats and people probably see like, ooh, she's super successful, like I have to remind myself of who I am in God daily, because I will easily talk myself out
Yeah.
of who God says that I am. And so to have people who are really praying for you and not just like saying it,
Mm,
but for real, and to remind you even in moments when
right.
you're like, I don't even want to hear it, um, was
Mm,
vital for me. Like last year specifically, but even on the journey through infertility, like they believed more than I did at times. And so having true community, and true
yeah.
sisters that like it's I don't even know how to describe it. I really don't. And I'm really close to my natural sister. And so for me, like the word friend or sister is not one that I use lightly. Um, and loyalty is so important to me. It's a core value of my life. And if I have to question that, you probably don't have space really close to me. So that means that the people that are like
Yeah.
that is priceless. Like I don't know how people do life without true friends. And it makes my heart sad that people don't get to experience what I've experienced. But I literally would not have survived the last year and plus without them. I really could. And we don't even see each other. Like we saw each other
Yeah.
probably twice last year. Um so it's
Yeah.
not even that. It's not even just in the togetherness physically, but like I know that our hearts are knit together
Yeah.
because it's like things that they will share with me or say to me or send to me that is spot on. Like my little dog died last year and Mia sent me this wind chime, and it just like those are things that are important because in a year like last year, that was hard. That was really, really hard for me. So yeah.
Yeah.
Don't invite me on here no more.
Man. Yo, I'm surprised I'm not weeping and crying because I'm the crier. But it hones in the point that friends, sisters turn friends are pearls that you want to collect. And I think like what you were saying is you don't know how people do life without this. And I think it's truly because they don't recognize the this what's the word? The necessity. That's not even enough. Like it's not even honed, like it's not drilling in. It is it's imperative, the imperative nature of having good friends in your life, because they do help balance the scales when it feels like you want to just sit in a corner and just cry and not do anything. You get that text like, hey, what you doing? And immediately, I don't know how everybody else responds, but immediately, like, I'm like, okay, Lord, you sent them on purpose so that I now have to respond because I feel like I'm accountable to, like, I have to say, hey, I don't feel good. I'm in a corner crying. And immediately, I mean, good friends, right? They're like, girl, what? Why? What's happening?
Yeah.
Call me. What is going on? You know, like, and they send the message, and I'm like, I didn't even want that right now. But, you know, good friends are like, I don't care if you want it, you need it. And this is what you're going to get. Right? Gosh. Oh, thanks for crying with me. I love when people cry with me, so I don't feel alone in this. Because I was definitely getting emotional. I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold it together. Um, the other part of sisterhood that I think people forget, because there is a difference. I'm not telling everybody on Come Sis With Me to be everybody's friend. That's definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that sisterhood is unique, and it has a unique role, especially in women, like in the lives of women and your womanhood. That's important. And balance is one of the topics that sisterhood helps kind of balance the scales out. How? Because I think if you're always investing in someone else and teaching a skill, a talent, something with, wise, a word of knowledge that you got, like, you're investing in that. And one of the ways that you specifically have done that, Chante, is through ministry, right? Being a visionary leader, who has over the past 10 years led other women in their leadership and ministry, including me, right? Setting some really good foundational points, and groundwork for what that looks like in ministry and womanhood and life in general. But just most recently creating Deborah's Den. And even though it is actually, I'll let you explain it. What was the purpose and how did it help you in this balancing of your life? Because I'm sure that was extreme cost to all the other things that you had to do. But why was Deborah's Den created? What is it? And how do you leverage it in your life? Or how do you plan to leverage it in your life?
I'm always looking for biblical examples to follow. It's really important to me to make sure like how I live my life aligns with the word of God. I don't want it to be a good idea, to your point. I want it to be a God idea. And several years ago, I guess almost 10 years ago, probably at this point, someone mentioned to me, they had a word for me and was like, have you ever studied Deborah in the Bible? You really have an anointing like Deborah. And I was like, who is that? I had not heard of Deborah before because y'all know they be robbing us of the teachings on the women in the Bible, but I won't go there. I was like, who is that? And so I wanted to do a deep dive about this woman who this person thought I had an anointing similar to. And I was so energized by reading about Deborah. Like it was like, oh my goodness. And it's not a lot in the Bible about Deborah, but I was so energized about reading about her because at that particular season of my life, like I heavily identify with Hannah because of the journey to fertility. And if you don't know Hannah, right, like she's a woman in the Bible that had to just plead with God to open her womb. And there were lots of other women in the Bible who battled infertility, but Hannah just really resonated with me. And so that's like who I was so focused on as like a woman in the Bible of like her faith and her journey with the Lord. And then Deborah came along and I was like, oh, okay.
Broke
Deborah
it open.
Yes, Deborah is a leader. She is a wife. And because the Bible did not mention that she was not a mother, I would assume, and that's me taking liberties, that she was a mother as well. And she was a military strategist as well. So she was a boss. So she was balancing a lot of different roles in her life. And so that has really stuck with me over the last 10 years of like, what would Jesus do? But also what would Deborah do? Like how would Deborah approach this and what strategy would she bring to this? And so as I walked in my own leadership journey, as Mia mentioned in the ministry that I founded, I really had a difficult time finding other women that were balancing several of those same things at the same time. Like I would meet a woman that maybe she had been a wife for decades and her children were older, and maybe she was, retired, or maybe she was at the peak of her career, but I couldn't really find women who had been in similar seasons as me. And so I really desired to find that, only for community's sake, people to kind of trade strategies with, and what systems are you using for this and that. And I could never really find a woman who had all those same things going on. And I've always kind of approached my life and my relationship with the Lord of like, if this is something that I need, it's probably something that somebody else needs. And when I was promoted into the C-suite in 2022, I had been in leadership in my professional career for years, but it's different in the C-suite. Like it really is different, leading in that capacity. And I am the youngest chief on our team. I was the only diverse team member on our team as well, and that comes with its own fair share of things to navigate, plus leading at church and co-leading in my home. And so I really wanted to provide an environment for other women leaders who were navigating different aspects of their leadership journey in different ways, whether they were entrepreneurs or ministers or pastors or mothers or wives, because whether you have children or not, like you are still a leader in your home, or even if you're single, or people that have leadership roles professionally, or just whatever the case may be, to really provide a place for women to be sharpened in their leadership in a place of safety. Because sometimes when you are a leader or the leader, you can be really lonely, and it's really tough to be vulnerable and share what you don't know. So this was a spot to be able to share like what you don't know and get better and get sharper and like create a community for yourself, as a leader or the leader in your like sphere of influence. And it was really developed from my own experiences of what I really needed to be successful in each of those roles, and something that the women could use no matter what season they were in. So like, while you could apply this in this season, well, maybe you could apply this in a different season. And it was really a labor of love, because to just see those women come together in that way and realize like they're not by themselves, and there was a place for them to be vulnerable and to grow and to not have to be in charge, was so like, it just touched my heart so much. And to your point, like, I know I can only do it once a year because of the different things that I balance, but it was beautiful. It was really beautiful to see.
I firsthand account, it definitely was beautiful. And even though many of the things I already knew, because one, I mean, I spent a lot of time with you. So I think as you learn them, you are very good at investing in someone else by sharing the wisdom. You're not a gatekeeper whatsoever. Sometimes I wish that you were in previous seasons. I was like, oh, I'm so tired of learning things, but it really wasn't. But Deborah's Den was a great, like, hey, you know these things, girl. What's wrong with you? Get back up. Get back on your game. Right? Remember who you are. Right? I kept hearing in my head after many of the sessions, show them who you are. Like from from Black Panther.
Yeah.
I was like, that's me. I gotta show them who I am. That's definitely me. But I think what people discount sometimes is that that's because you have such a strong affinity or a belief in the system of sisterhood and what that provides, right? And that women need safe places to be who they naturally are, who they're naturally created to be, and they need places to learn and grow and mature, and they need to do it with other women who can show them, hey, this is cool. We can do this together. You're not alone in this fight. Which is why I asked you on, and I'm so glad that you said yes. I'm always thankful for your yes. But I don't want to like, we could literally have 5 sessions on this, but I love and value your time as a wife and a mother and a business executive, and so I don't want to, tarry too much longer. But what are some closing thoughts or words of encouragement or whatever is just on your mind that you would want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I think so many things. I think the primary thing for women to remember is like God has graced you with the capacity for what's yours at this time. Because we sometimes struggle with like I remember I remember when we were transitioning, I was transitioning the ministry that I used to lead um out, like closing, kind of shutting things down. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have all this free time or available time. And someone shared a prophetic word with me, and they're like, the Lord is about to charge you with this. And I was like, what? Why? What is the reason? And Lord, like, I want to rest and all these things that I had in mind. And I did. I've had a season of rest. It doesn't, like, rest can be active rest at all. It doesn't mean doing nothing. But I really had to lean into,
Right.
like, Lord, if this is what you have for me now, you are going to give me the grace for that. Like, your mercies are new every single day. And if I don't have the grace for it, I don't want to do it, because sometimes I don't be want to do the stuff. I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm gonna be obedient, but I don't be want to. But that the Lord will give me the grace for it, and that's a lot of times how I do discern what I'm supposed to be leaning into when the grace isn't there. And grace is that supernatural ability to accomplish something well for the glory of God. And I know when I'm forcing it, I can feel it. So I would say that, like, as a woman, the Lord will give you grace to increase your capacity for what is for you in the time that it's there, including friendships and sisterhood. And sometimes that's where the grace actually comes from, is from the women who hold you up and support you and give you that supernatural ability that you don't have in your own strength. So that would be it. Lean into your grace, and give yourself a pat on the back too. Like, for balancing those things, I have to remember to celebrate. Like, girl, you getting this done, and you getting it done good. And that's a great thing to do.
You're doing a good job.
Yes.
Now that song comes, you're doing a good job, girl. You're doing a good job. We didn't even talk about this, but we'll, again, like I said, culture of celebration. That's just something that we could move into. But I love that close. And so it has encouraged me to prophetically speak over you and the listeners too about this balance. And this is where we'll close. My sisters, Chante, anybody listening, you are beautifully balanced. You walk in God's grace and his ability to navigate the responsibilities of your life. You don't discount them or make excuses for them, but you accept them with a charge and a blessing that every area that was given to you was meant for you in this life. You are a blessing to your family. You are a blessing to your church. You're a blessing to your community, to your workplace, to your friends, and to the sisterhood collectively. May you continue to walk in that fulfilled, blessed place with balance and grace and bloom every place that God plants you. I thank you so much, Chante, for coming on this podcast, this session with me, sharing your wisdom, sharing all of the things that you have had to go through in life. There's a cost to it, but you are showing people that it is necessary and it's possible to walk in the extremely hard things, but also have a well-balanced joy and celebration in your life as a result of it. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. That's it.
Thank you.
If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a sister. Follow the podcast and leave a review if this space has been meaningful to you. Or if you want to share your story and help shape our sisterhood, go to the wellness-architect.com/podcast and click on share your testimony. We would be honored to hold space for your voice. Thank you for coming for the stories and strategies and staying for the sisterhood. Until next time, sis. Be well. Is this thing on?